Welcome back to the Delaware Way. We continue our conversation now with the Chief of Wilmington Police, Robert Tracy. So settle one thing once and for all. Are you having a problem with aggressive panhandlers?
No, we're not. And
your office said you did.
My office said we did. We had one instance of a case where you're going to have aggressive panhandling, but not as a pattern of aggressive.
You know why I'm asking the question.
I know, because there was a press release that was put out from my office educating the public on what to do with aggressive panhandling, which actually led to the perception that we're having an issue with aggressive panhandling. Every city's going through panhandling. There's a homeless issue. There's opiate addictions. There's people out there that have these addiction issues, and and they might be asking for money. But as far as aggressiveness, no, we're not having a pattern of aggressiveness, and it was a one instance. And we should have taken it to that community meeting, that specific area, and that person to deal with it, instead of broadcasting it out as what we call as our Nixle alert, what we put out to the press and the community of what to do with aggressive panhandling.
You know, me, like most people that walk through city streets, not just Wilmington, but walk through city streets, I do get annoyed by panhandling. And I think to myself, why isn't the city doing more about this? And certainly aggressive panhandlers, I haven't run into that myself, but aggressive panhandlers I could see would be a huge problem. What's wrong with saying we're dealing with aggressive panhandlers? What's wrong with saying this is the way you deal with them?
No, there's nothing wrong with dealing with it. If someone's breaking the law and aggressive panhandling, we will deal with that issue. But overall, as a city, we have panhandling just like every other city, but there's some constitutionally protected rights of a person for free speech to be able to ask for money. And we have to protect those rights as well. But when it comes to aggressive panhandling, if it's happening, we will address it. We want people to report it, and we will take the proper action if that's what's happening. But overall, when we put a statement out like that, it gives the perception to the city, coming from the police department, that is an overall issue of the city, and certainly that's not the case. I made clarifications for the next 2 days as far as we will handle aggressive panhandling, but it is not an overall issue that we're having, but it certainly can happen, and we will address it as a police department.
See, you're still dealing with it.
Yes, I am.
All these days later. I read also that the Wilmington police are now carrying Narcan, and that is I don't want to say cure, but it's a method of bringing back somebody from an overdose. I guess what I was surprised is that it's just started now. How come you haven't been carrying it for the last year?
Well, let me just make it clear. We're in the process of being educated and trained on how to carry Narcan. We're not carrying it yet, but here's one of the things coming in. As you know, and we've talked about, I worked in New York City and I worked in Chicago. And I always draw upon another urban center to see exactly how they rolled this type of thing out with Narcan, to make sure we do it right. If someone else has done it, let's make sure if they've worked out the kinks, and I talked to my colleagues in both of those cities. The other thing that we have in the city of Wilmington is we have a very good response time, both from our fire department, which just started carrying Narcan because of laws that prevented them from carrying it, but our EMS and paramedics, both from St. Francis and Newcastle County, because we're such a concentrated area, they most of the time get there before we do because it's a medical call. And we will respond to all scenes, but we have not had an instance in my 20 months that I've been here where if our officers were carrying it, that we could have saved someone's life. So it wasn't the absence of carrying it. So it was not as a big of issue as it is in the rest of the state, where it has a bigger geographical area where officers respond. They are the first ones on the scene. But that being said, I have looked at it. I've looked at the way it should be carried. There was some concerns of mine that it had to be at a certain temperature, or it became ineffective. We walk foot posts. We're over 90 degrees. We're less than 60 degrees, which was the measurement where we had to store it. We had no place in our cars to store it. We didn't know the logistics and how to store it in our station house. We wanted to make sure that I cleared all those things to make sure it was effective, that if we did administer it, it was effective when we did.
When do you think they'll start carrying it? They're going through training now?
Yeah, and what we've done, and we've come up to, I sat down with Dr. Gibney, who is actually out there in the streets of Wilmington, who hands out Narcan. And she and I met, and we met with the Lieutenant Governor, and I sat down, and they showed, well, some of my concerns were met. It was met that now they don't have these type of issues with this new type of Narcan, that it becomes ineffective at certain temperature levels were hit. Also, they'll actually store this for us, so if something is used or it expires, we can trade it off at St. Francis Hospital. And then we had to wait for the training, and that's something we're going to go through shortly, and then there had to be an MOU in place. So we're doing all those things, and we'll be just an extra layer that we can save someone's life if they do have an overdose. And I understand the concern, because everybody's life has value to me, even if they have some issues in their life and they're addicted to narcotics. I want to make sure that even if we save their life, let's do it in a timely manner, because there can be some type of brain damage that happens if we don't get them as quick as we can. And we're going to do that. We're going to do our part. And I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction because we're the only ones not carrying it. Should we carry it immediately? Let's study why we're doing it. And now I'm very happy with the way it's being rolled out, and my concerns have been met, so we can be effective in what we do in policing and just add to that layer of administrating narcotics.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming in. Always good to talk to you. Congratulations on the crime statistics.
Thank you, sir.
Chief of Wilmington Police, Robert Tracy. We'll continue right after this.